Hello, Lafayette, and welcome to the next episode of the LPIE podcast, where we talk about Lafayette schools, the LPIE Education Foundation, and what your donation supports for our teachers and children. My name is Adam Welcome, and I am the host of this podcast with LPIE, and also a father of two children, currently at Spring Hill Elementary. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, you are in for a treat. We have two absolutely amazing teachers, amazing women and educators from the World Language Program at Stanley Middle School. We have Launa, Parnas, and Claudia Windfuhr, and we are so excited to have them on. Launa, let's start with you. Introduce yourself. How long have you been teaching at Stanley, and anything else you would like our listeners to know about you?
Okay, hi Adam. Thanks for having me. This is my 10th year here at Stanley Middle School. I teach Spanish 1A right now. I've taught Spanish 1A, 1B, French 1A, 1B, and I truly love the Stanley community, the families, the students, and I believe that our Stanley teachers, our faculty is the best of the best. It is a wonderful place to work, and I enjoy my job every day. I have two kids of my own that are now, one just graduated from Berkeley and one is at UCLA. So I've been through the middle school process with kids myself on the other side.
Yeah, no, that's an important piece of being on the other side. And before we got on today, Launa, we were talking and we have something in common. I was a teacher at the school where your kids went to school. I knew I recognized the name. I knew I recognized the face, and it's just fun to be reunited on the podcast. And we have Claudia Windfuhr, and if you don't know Claudia, you will know about her very soon. Claudia, introduce yourself and tell us about you and how long you've been at Stanley and what you do and everything else.
Well, before I talk about myself, I also want to add a few more things about Launa. She's way too modest because she also is our department head. And if you can think about what job that entails, I mean, what that all means in normal times, she is actually now saving our department and leading us through, well, some of the most difficult decisions during the COVID and the distance learning. And I mean, I write her emails like, thank you, thank you, thank you, and asking all these questions and going to all these meetings. And it's just unbelievable, everything that she has done. So merci. And she has obviously, as she said, she has taught French. So she's also been my colleague. So I've been here for 30 years. It's my 30th year at Stanley. But my 40th year overall in education. I was born in Germany. I taught in France. I taught for 3 years in Korea. And yeah, I mean, I speak German, French, English, Spanish, a little bit of Korean, and like a miniature bit of Mandarin, which I had to learn when I was asked to teach the Wheels Introduction to World Languages. Oops. And that's where we had to introduce 4 different languages. And Stanley is probably, I mean, I don't have the data for the entire state of California, but I believe it's one of the very few middle schools that offers 4 world languages. It's just unbelievable. When I tell people where I work and what I teach and what else we offer, they always go like, you got to be kidding me. And it's for real.
Well, you're not kidding, and I didn't know that there was 4 languages offered. I think this podcast it's great information. Last week we had some Akalani students on talking about the blueprint paper, and I've lived in Lafayette for 10 years, and I just didn't know about all the programs that are in Lafayette. So, well, Claudia, while we have you, and since you've been at Stanley, probably one of the longest tenure teachers there, if not the longest, which is just, no, it's an amazing thing. Just tell us about the World Language Program. Give us an overview.
Well, I mean, it's just this idea that you can't really put a value on one language and say, hey, that's the language you should be learning. So, I mean, schools offer different languages. It's just that at our school, it's German, French, Spanish, and Mandarin, and we have an amazing crew teaching those world languages. And the goal is, of course, to get kids excited about learning something new, about thinking about different cultures, thinking about different values, just getting to know how other people think, how other people behave, and just opening their world. And that's why, I don't know when we even changed from foreign to world language, but it's been that switch where we say, hey, you learn a language that opens a new world for you. Foreign has this connotation of being something strange. Well, it's foreign to me, like, ugh. But world language really has this totally different focus. Yes, it opens a brand new world for you. And like trying some grilled, whatever, what were those crickets? Trying some grilled crickets from Mexico. I mean, it's like, you really got to be curious. And that's what we're trying to share with the students. And that's what keeps me going year after year after year. It's never boring, because every country also always has new things that they come up with, new music, new traditions, new fashion, new movies. It's amazing.
Well, as you're talking, I'm thinking about what you said about just opening up, and I think about exposure and just building awareness in people about the world and all the different languages. And I would ask our listeners, if you have had the opportunity to travel to another country, maybe just think about that and your experience, maybe as you got off the plane in the airport and you heard a different language over the loudspeaker, or trying to purchase a ticket, and just that, what it really did for you. I can think about my first time traveling abroad. I was at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, and I think about that so many times, and I've had the opportunity to travel all over the world many times, and just the perspective and how it's changed my life when I've come back to my life here in the United States, and just being able to give your students some of that in class. Now, Launa, as the department chair, you're a teacher as well too, but department chairs have a little bit of a different perspective. So what maybe kind of different perspective could you bring when you're talking about the world language program and what it has to offer, or maybe where you want to grow, or just anything along those lines?
Well, I think our program has been incredibly versatile over the times in making sure that a priority is not just learning vocabulary and grammar, but really passionately learning the culture. And I think our program does an excellent job of boosting cross-cultural understanding and empathy, which is so important in a global community, but especially right now. Learning world languages helps to be able to connect people who otherwise wouldn't be able to connect. And even in our society, in our community, getting a chance to communicate and understand the culture and the language of other people. And like you said, makes travel a lot more fun when you're traveling abroad, to be able to understand the nuances of culture and to get to play with the language and have fun with the language and try it out. I believe that in our department, a priority is making a nice, gentle, sort of like getting your feet wet in a swimming pool before your swimming laps. In high school, the speed is twice as fast as it is at Stanley Middle School. In Spanish 1 in the high schools, a one-year class, and 1A, 1B takes place over 2 years at Stanley. That allows us to do a lot of things like games, culture, art, music. We teach through games and storytelling, and in some classes it's through songs, in some classes it's through garbanzo stories, but a lot of storytelling and a lot of hands-on kinesthetic learning. I also think we give students in middle school a chance to play around with different ways in which their brain works, in ways in which they can memorize information, which is important to learn before they get to high school. So, you know, language is a lot of repetition, and through comprehensible input, through a lot of stories. we teach through repetition, but there's still an element of memorizing. So we expose them to different ways to memorize, be it writing words out or doing flashcards or trying Quizlet or listening activities. Some kids are auditory learners, some are visual learners, I think most kids are kinesthetic learners. Therefore, we expose them to all. We do some kind of an engaging activity that reviews all the vocabulary. But by the time they get to high school, the goal is that now they know the most efficient way for their brains to absorb a lot of vocab, a lot of information. And then they have the tools they need to succeed with all of the, with science and with formulas in math and with English, anything where they're going to be needing to memorize. They know what works best for their brain that's most efficient in the least amount of time, the most cost efficient way to learn. And then also one other benefit to taking world language in the middle school is you can get to the AP level in high school and start at level 2. If a student starts at level 2, then they can take AP, which gives them college credit and boosts their chances of getting into a good school if they want to apply to college.
Yeah, and I think if I had to briefly summarize the skills that you learn in world language while learning another language are transferable to so many other areas in different classes and just in your life as a whole. And Claudia, this next question is for you. You were born in Germany and you've lived all over and you speak like 25 languages. And I think about our economy in 2020, even before COVID, we live in a global economy. And you can work and have teams in 5 different countries, but live anywhere in the world. But even now, especially with many people working remote, having those language skills are so important. So why we live in a global economy? What are those reasons, or what are other reasons, or things that you've seen from teaching in Korea to living in Germany to now living in California that just brings that world language all together?
Well, I think, it's an interesting question you're asking, because I'm going to talk myself out of a job here. But most people do speak English, obviously, especially in places like Germany, one of the biggest economies on the planet. They do speak English. But as Launa said, when you come to our world language program, you will learn how to learn a language, and you will learn how to connect to other people and to understand other people. And sometimes the culture is almost more important. Understanding and mastering the culture is more important than learning the language by itself. So again, it's a fine line, because yes, we want people to actually master the language, but then often they will get ahead in the workplace because they can relate. They know how to act in certain board meetings when they meet a French person or a person from China or whatever, because they have learned the culture. That is a huge part. And the American Council on Teaching a Foreign Language has long now recognized this, that we can't just say grammar and pronunciation, whatever. Culture is one of the 3 C's. And so we have to really, really emphasize that.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting you to talk about the culture and the social kind of cues. And as you're talking, the more I'm thinking, so much of it is that even if English was not the language of the world or what people learn for business, it still is important in just building relationships. And I think those relationships are so important. And in thinking about relationships and interactions and conversations, Launa, what types of interactions and conversations do you see your students having in class or in a Zoom breakout in the language that you're teaching at the moment that just makes you proud to be a teacher?
Well, I'm proud to be a teacher every day because these kids are amazing, and they are trying so hard. They're so resilient with what is being thrown to them this year, and their positive attitude and effort inspires me every day. What we try to do is bring the real world into our classroom, be it Zoom or be it behind 4 walls. And so if we're teaching food, a unit on food, we'll create some kind of a restaurant scenario. And prior to COVID, there was food involved, and there's always so much fun cooking activities, pretzel making and crepe making, and learning how to make tortillas or ordering at restaurants. And I know in my classes we would create menus, and the students would bring in food, and half of them were waiters and half of them were customers, and they would role play, and then they'd switch. And I would always tell them, be nice to your waiter because he's about to be your customer and it's going to be payback time. So we would just have fun with it and use it, and create a setting in which they're using, in a real life setting, the language they just learned. A lot of
actually, Launa, maybe we can add at this point that these special projects are only possible because we do get LPIE funding. I mean, I know that's always, people always ask, like, what does LPIE, even what role does LPIE even play? But I mean, so many of those special things that make the classes such high value comes through the support. I mean, it's LPIE, it's PTA. It is something that we couldn't really be doing if we didn't have special financial support. And also, I mean, we have docents for a language one-on-one projects. We have art docents who come, who make all of this almost, like, I could say, almost more colorful. I mean, it's just like, we are already colorful, but it makes it even more colorful.
Well, Claudia, you beat me to it. LPIE contributes $300,000 a year to Stanley electives, and LPIE in the old days as LASF, Lafayette Art and Science Foundation, and then just that migration to the current LPIE. And I mean, just with numbers like that in donations and support, thank you to all the families and businesses and all contributors in Lafayette that support LPIE. And we also have Danielle Gallagher with us today, who is the vice president of LPIE this year, and also the parent of a 6th grader at Stanley. And I think before I ask Danielle to contribute, I think I know the feeling that Danielle has for world languages, because her daughter and my daughter have taken Spanish at Spring Hill for the last, I think, 4 years, through an elective program that starts at 7:45 in the morning, and kids are like, it's early, but we love Spanish. So Danielle, on behalf of LPIE, what does the contribution, what does world languages mean to you and your family?
Yeah, thank you, Adam, so much for having me today. And I love listening to Launa and Claudia. LPIE is so proud to support 24 electives at Stanley, which include world language. And as Claudia mentioned, the fact that our kids have 4 different choices and are exposed in 6th grade through the WHEEL program, and really lets them figure out, what language would I like to try in 7th grade? I think Betsy so eloquently says what's neat about middle school is the kids can really dabble and figure out what path or direction that they want to focus on. And the fact that there are 4 choices in world language is incredible. So, and thanks to all the parents and community members who support LPIE, we're able to do that.
Well, thank you, Danielle. We appreciate you and all the work and volunteer hours and time and support and everything else in between that you and the entire LPIE staff and volunteers do on a daily basis for all the children in Lafayette. Okay, Launa, I have a scenario for you. You have every single parent of a 5th grader at one of the 4 elementary schools in front of you, and they're not sure about world language and this and that. What do you tell them about world language? How do you convince them that it is an important part of their child's education?
Oh, world languages. I think colorful is a great word that Claudia had used. Our communication, we're social beings, and being able to communicate and be social with the world around us is so important. And right now, opening our eyes to the world and the world outside is something that you can't get from the other in the same way from most classes. And this is a thanks again to LPIE for the opportunity to do what we do in our classes, which involve the kinds of amazing culture and art projects, like just as an example of what you'd see in a world language classroom, you would see language and games and learning how to socialize and explore the world through geography and art and music. We have a concert where we sing and we dance, and all the different languages have their own song and their own dance. We get together, and the feeling in the air is just, so it's like lightning. Everybody's so passionate about sharing their song. We have a cultural fair in which we put on for the entire community all of the diverse cultures that make up our community of Lafayette. And we share our stories and our cultures and our history and our food with each other. Things like storytelling, making everything from French and Spanish tiles to milagros and recipe books with lavender sugar and recipes for making things from lavender from Provence, or from Chinese recipe books with spice jars and how to make these recipes with Chinese spices. Piñatas that are just mind-blowing piñata projects that they engineer, and they come up with the most amazing structures, and then they learn all about the history and how they began and how they made, and they get to be with friends and speak in Spanish and listen to music and do art. It's a very well-rounded course. And I also I think, I don't know, Claudia, I think all of us always encourage students to consider studying abroad at some point. And fortunately, when we're past this pandemic, pre and past COVID, we offer, even in middle school at Stanley, student exchange programs where they can interact and meet students from Germany and students from Colombia, and they come to our campuses for at least a week, and we interact with them, and they can live with host families. And then there's a program to Colombia if students want to travel. My daughter started studying abroad in middle school and high school, and she ended up taking 2 years of college through a Berkeley dual degree program, studying in Europe for 2 years, and she has now 2 bachelors in 4 years, but she's been to 52 countries, and she's 22 years old. She speaks 3 languages fluently, much like Claudia's son. So she's trilingual. When you've been to 52 countries, it teaches you something that reading out of a book will not teach you. And so we all have lived abroad in multiple places, and we like to encourage our students to sort of see through different eyes, get a different perspective on life around us.
Wow, well, that's a heck of an elevator speech about the world language programs. Claudia, do you have anything to add that Launa?
Well, I was just gonna say that I usually make it very short, where I say that we are actually making the world a better place because we're promoting peace. Because when you know people, it's much harder to hate, and when you meet people up close, you actually learn more, and you will be able to have different relationships. And that's has been my goal for the last 40 years. And that's basically what I'm trying to be the role model for that. And I think in our department, we're all trying to be role models for tolerance and for curiosity and understanding and promoting a worldview that is more open than closed. And I think that is basically what pushes our department. And yeah, I started a pen pal program in 1995, and I just got an email from Julie Livers, our art docent, that her son, who was also in my class 15 years ago, actually is still in contact with the pen pal that I set him up with. And I'm like, oh my God. And they actually meet. Whenever Sven comes to the United States, they meet. And I was like, oh my God, don't make me weep here. But you never know who you touch. And again, in our department, we need to promote better understanding, to have a global, to educate global citizens in our school.
And I think the cultural fair does a good job of, we don't just teach, tolerance, we teach appreciation, we teach love of other languages and love of diversity. And so I think that was really well put with what Claudia said, that We want to embrace other cultures and cherish not only the similarities, but the differences as well.
A global economy is important, but global understanding and global empathy is more important. When you know someone, it is harder to hate. Claudia, I think that is the quote to end this conversation on. Launa, Claudia, Danielle, you all three are a gift to Lafayette. And Launa and Claudia, thank you for all the energy and excitement and passion that you bring to the World Language Program at Stanley. Everyone listening, thank you for the continued support. Thank you for listening. Share the podcast on your Facebook or email it to your friends. You can listen on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You can listen on Spotify, and you can also listen to the podcast on YouTube. We hope that everyone has an absolutely amazing day. Now for a special message from LPIE Executive Director Beth Goldberg.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening to the LPIE podcast series. We hope you are enjoying the conversations and learning about the impact of your donations to LPIE. If you want to hear more, please subscribe. We will continue to roll out conversations with experts in our community so you can hear firsthand how our students are benefiting from your support. Without an education foundation in Lafayette, we would lose incredible programming that expands opportunities for our students. So please visit lpi.org and donate an amount that is meaningful to you. If you have questions or hot topics you'd like us to talk about, contact LPIE at office@lpi.org. Thank you, and stay tuned for the next podcast.